Good morning, normal, Bloomington normal. It's a brand new day. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and we've got some big things to talk about before you need to go to work, go to school, whatever it is. We are going to be talking about the proposed housing project, and it's got a lot of folks fired up here in the town. And there's going to be a planning commission meeting tonight at 5 p.m. You won't want to miss it. It's the planning commission meeting. So if you live in that area, listen up because this stuff matters this morning. A little bit later, we are going to be getting into a few things that you also won't want to miss. An Illinois homeowner was forced to sleep on an air mattress in his own house and share his residence with squatters. Yes. So we're going to get to that. And I am so excited about this story. I don't know why. One, I do like Michelangelo's David, the sculpture. And I get to talk about that a little bit. I'm not a big fan of statues. Like I said, I don't really like the idea of statues or like looking at something. I think we're told very specifically in the Bible not to admire fake, statues or worship statues. But I like David's Michelangelo or Michelangelo's David. We're going to get to that because guess what? New York City just erected a 12-foot statue of this plus-sized woman, and it's a fictitious character. It's not of any woman in particular. It's just a generic black woman who's plus-sized, and I guess it's supposed to symbolize representation or whatever. It's just bizarre, and people are out there comparing this statue in a statue in New York City to Michelangelo's David, and I'm like, are you insane? Are you? You're woke. Speaking of woke, a woke Democrat tries to bait Kristi Noem into this fake news lie that they're deporting children. I've told you several times that, that's not true. He's not deporting children. He's deporting children at the request of their illegal parents who did not do the right thing and bringing their children or having children or being here illegally. And the mothers are requesting the children are deported with them. It winds up being a bigly mistake trying to bait Kristi Noem into this fake news that Donald Trump is kidnapping children and he's deporting them. Deporting American children. Give me a break. All right, here we go. Proposed housing. Everybody's really fired up about this. The developer, once again, has constructed it's trying to push for the construction of these Essex apartments in townhomes project right near Shelbourne Drive and Beach Street in Normal. The proposal is like 19 three-story apartment buildings. This is 228 units, I believe, somewhere around there. And it's across 19.5 acres. And then there's going to be townhomes, and I think that's about 224 units, something like that. So overall, about 250 units, 504 parking spaces. This plan is significantly it faces significant opposition. Okay, I haven't heard of one person, and if you do, for some odd reason, want this to come to Normal, shoot me an email. I've never heard of anybody supporting this yet. Maybe that would change at the Planning Commission. We'll have to see. So concerns have been raised about the impact of the character of the neighborhood, potential strain on infrastructures, and increased traffic congestion. And the development site is currently undeveloped. It's adjacent to the Collie Ridge subdivision. Now, there was a covenant between Collie Ridge and this developer, and I guess the covenant was for this to be single-family homes. And I guess the covenant's broken, or they came to some sort of agreement. I don't know. They were put on hold, previous plans for this thing, because of the covenant issues restricting the land use to single-family homes. Despite modifications to the proposal, many community members, they're still upset about this. They're still opposed, fearing that this large-scale development is going to disrupt their suburban lifestyle, their environment. The reason why they moved to Normal, okay? It's going to disrupt the way the feel of Normal is. When I talk to most residents, they say, we moved to Normal because of the small town feel. It's a bigger populated area. It's a very populated area, but it's got a small town feel to it. So residents continue to voice their concern, emphasizing maintaining the town's character and trying to ensure that the growth aligns with the community values. Okay, so here's the deal. The developer wants to take this land that's currently zoned for, or was currently zoned, or zoned for agriculture, single family zoning. And then we want to transform it, of course, into multifamily housing. And this is 3-story apartment buildings, and they're going to overlook these single family homes. So there's a privacy issue. You spent all that money on a privacy fence, and just to have like a row of people in these 3-story apartment buildings peer over your privacy fence, like that's so ridiculous. The residents, they were wanting to get a meeting with the developer, which is really interesting, because they wanted to get answers, and they were told by the town that they can't mandate a meeting between the developer and the residents there. Instead, questions had to go through staffer Mercy Davison. Okay, so like if you have any questions, call me. And I mean, let's be real. Like this email shows you all you really need to know. Okay, Mercy isn't the developer's attorney. She's not some sort of liaison. Okay, she works for like a developer communications rep. Okay, she works for the town of Normal, which means she's a public employee, which means she's our employee. So she should do everything in her power. Hey, guys, please, let's sit down. Let's come to the table, and meet with these residents, I think, or, the town of Normal should try to arrange for a meeting with the developers. And because they work for us. They're supposed to be representing the residents, not acting as like a go-between who filters what gets heard by the developer. Okay, so that's what this meeting is all about, the Planning Commission meeting tonight. So the kind of move, this is a kind of move by Mercy Davison that didn't really sit well with a lot of people. This email that says, oh, well, we can't really mandate a public meeting with the developer. I get that, but like, did you ask? You know what I mean? And I think that would tell you all you really need to know. If I was a town employee, okay, or if I was a member of the town, either a public employee or an elected official, and I caught with that the developer did not want to meet, and I asked, hey, developer, would you meet with the normal citizens there, the residents, they've got concerns, and if the developer came back and said, no, I'm not going to meet with them, then that would tell me all I really need to know about this housing project. Sorry, you're gone. Like, we're not going to approve this. So if I was sitting in the booth or in the chairs of your normal planning commissioners, I would look at that, and that would tell me all I really need to know. So now here's where it gets even more interesting. The official planning committee agenda. The project is described as something that will complement and draw attention to One Normal Plaza, okay, known as ONP, One Normal Plaza. So if you've been around a while, you know that ONP is a key part of the community. It's full of green space, history. There's a quiet charm about this place. Now, this new development is supposed to, as they put it, the town in their planning committee agenda, draw attention to One Normal Plaza. So what is the town planning to do with the One Normal Plaza space? That is my question. Okay, you want to draw attention to it. So what are you going to develop One Normal Plaza now? And what is it going to turn into? Is this part of a larger plan? Especially with 2026 Route 66 Centennial on the horizon, the town's already carved a bike path through ONP, this One Normal Plaza, and they've spent a lot of money on this like Route 66 monument, even though Route 66 doesn't actually run through Normal anymore. Veterans Parkway cut that connection off years ago. Unlike places in Pontiac, they have preserved the original route. Okay, so this is what really bothers me. You're trying to fake it normal, like you just with Veterans Parkway cuts through cuts that connection off years ago. Okay, and you're trying to fake like a Route 66 connection. Newsflash, you don't have it. So I think ONP is next on the development list, and they're going to create something there as part of a bigger plan. It's a larger plan with this 2026 Route 66 Centennial on the horizon. They spent a ton of money, Route 66 monument. I don't know. I mean, let's talk about what rezoning means, by the way. They rezoned this to multifamily housing. This is a 3-story apartment building in a residential neighborhood. This is going to be a massive change. Okay, and it's not in line with what the land was approved for and what this housing covenant was originally about. It said, hey, and that's why this didn't go through before. Now they've reintroduced it, these developers. It's absolutely going to affect the feel, the function of the area, and I just don't know why they wouldn't stick with two-story units. Or we had a real estate agent on. Her name is Kayla DeLong, longtime real estate agent, and she was talking about how, look, I don't know what's wrong with these developers in the town of Normal. You don't need to build mini mansions. Just build single family homes that don't have granite countertops. And I mean, boom, we've got affordable housing. I mean, I don't know why we've got to build mini mansions or lower apartment buildings. I don't get that. So yeah, this is all, and this is not about the housing shortage. If it was about the housing shortage, what they would do, and like I said, American culture, we want the yard, we want the picket fence, we want a single family home where we will be able to house our children. Okay, you can't house them in an apartment. You can claim that you can house them in an apartment, but the kids need space to run, to be active. And this is not going to be it. So if you were really about affordable housing, you'd give the people what they want, which is single family housing. And like I said, affordability, that's, what exactly is affordable these days? You pay $2,000 a month to some other guy and you will own nothing and you'll be happy? Is that their idea of affordable? That somebody will never have ownership? And they're just going to continue to pay these exorbitant rents because they have to, by the way, because McLean County ranks number 27 and out of the 3,000 plus counties in the nation for highest property taxes. Okay, so the rents are going to be high no matter what, because the developer, or the people who have got those apartment buildings, Young America, they're going to have to pay property taxes, and they gotta skyrocket the rents. Okay, so really, I mean, most importantly, affordability is a relative term. I think that, affordable to one person means something different. I think it's unaffordable to charge somebody $2,000 a month and they will never have ownership of that said thing. I'm sorry. And let's not forget, this project is being pushed by Young America, which most definitely means that these are going to be student housing, probably. It's going to be student housing. So that's the big question. Is this going to be student housing? And why this spot? Why can't they choose other spots like Rab or Parkside, something a little bit more rural? Why do this in a neighborhood? It makes no sense. And people are worried about traffic. They're worried about crime. They're worried about property values. Obviously, you put something like this there, your property value is going to go down. Probably people in that area are calculating, trying to figure out their exit strategy because it's Illinois. I mean, come on. And now your house is going to sell for way less when you go to leave. But underneath all that, we need to ask a very important question. Do we have a voice? Are we going to let this thing just be rubber stamped, or are you going to make your voice heard? And that's the main question. 5 p.m. is your chance to make sure that answer is yes. Yes, my voice was heard. And if you care about how your neighborhood grows, and we as conservatives, we should care about how our neighborhood grows. If you care about being heard, this is your moment. Show up, speak out, ask the hard questions. Don't let the town brush this through. That's another project through. By the way, most of the housing projects that they've approved so far haven't broken ground. So how can you tell me that there's a housing crisis if you haven't broken ground on any of the projects that you've approved? How about we build those things and then let's see if there's still a housing crisis? And from a conservative standpoint, multifamily housing developments often represent a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach, and there's no individuality. These neighborhoods are built, single-family neighborhoods are built for a reason. It provides stability, safety, permanency, a sense of shared values, community. High density housings like apartment complexes, they erode the fabric of that community because they bring in permanent, especially if they're students, populations. Okay, and they increase traffic, they strain the local infrastructure, and they can alter a community's quiet nature. Okay. So conservatives, we as conservatives should prioritize local control, and these developers who are distant, urban planners looking to make as much money as possible. That shouldn't override, their preferences should not override the local residents and what they want. All right, I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. The real housing crisis is the dang taxes. Exactly. Explain the mass exodus for me, JB Pritzker. We've got so much to get to this morning. Kristi Noem was, of course, in Springfield yesterday, right outside the governor's mansion. Of course, you've got people saying that Kristi Noem politicized Emma Schaefer's death, which not true. She was just stating the facts that Emma Schaefer would be here today had not Gabriel Calixto remained in the country and been deported. Had he been deported after he kidnapped a girl, okay, a separate girl outside of Emma Schaefer, had that been the case, Emma Schaefer would still be alive today. Okay, so Governor J.B. Pritzker, he, of course, here's something that he said on his social media about Kristi Noem. Unlike Trump in Noem, Illinois follows the law. His administration has violated the Constitution, denied people due process, untrue, and disappeared law-abiding neighbors. Okay, I encourage the secretary to spend less time performing for Fox News and more time practicing or protecting the homeland. Oh my goodness. Here's a statement he released. I'll share this with you and I'll just get to this. Absolutely insanity. You know, and you're going to see a lot of people saying, oh, she used these people as political pawns, the people who, you know, died at the hands of Emma Schaefer. Now, a little bit about Emma Schaefer. Emma Schaefer was a left-wing activist, okay? And most likely, and I from what I've been able to gather on social media and from her connections with Gabriel Calixto. Gabriel Calixto was part of like an immigration project nonprofit organization. He's an illegal immigrant, okay, and they met each other through one of these NGOs that they both kind of like worked for, volunteered for, whatever. And they were going out, okay. So he has an MO. He's a serial abuser. And now he's a killer. So this happened to a woman. Her name is Katie O'Brien. Katie O'Brien went to a motel room with him. Well, he kidnapped her, forced her into a motel room where he had a noose in a cabinet and threatened her. It was truly tragic to listen to Katie O'Brien's story on the cell phone. I called her and, oh man, I mean, that was probably one of the toughest conversations I've ever had to have with an interviewee or with anybody. That was probably one of the toughest interviews I've ever conducted. I've worked with victims before, gunshot victims. They're very standoffish. This has been some time now. Katie was pretty open about what had happened. And that is I usually don't get victims when it's that late. You know, I usually get victims when I'm interviewing them right when it happens. But this is interesting because there was, you know, Gabriel Calixto, he had a bunch of deportation orders, but through all this due process and these layers, he was never deported. And he ultimately allegedly killed a different girl than Katie O'Brien. It was Emma Schaefer, whom he stabbed, allegedly. And he's on the run. He wasn't convicted of it. And they can't find him. Authorities assume he went back to Mexico. So he could still be out there in the country. Who knows? But here's a statement from Governor J.B. Pritzker. Unlike Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, Illinois follows the law. The Trump administration is violating the United States Constitution, denying people due process, and disappearing law-abiding neighbors, including children who are U.S. citizens. We're going to get to this. Yet, they're taking no real action to promote public safety and deport violent criminals with clear and defined legal process. With the clear and defined legal process. It's not clear and it's not defined, okay, the legal process, because these judges would want you to have an illegal alien go before 17 judges in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia before he ever gets deported. Okay, he went before 17 different judges. He was here in this country illegally. Had order of protections, was pulled over by the police, clearly human trafficking, at least according to the police. Body cam footage of him carting like 8 people, okay, across there. I think he was in Texas. And to go on, Trump Noem publicity stunts do not make our community safer or immigration system smarter. Illinois doesn't need the abuse of power or ignore the Constitution to keep our people safe, like the millions of Americans asking for sensible, humane immigration reform. Immigration reform. Okay, notice how so this is pretty watered down for Governor J.B. Pritzker, okay? He says he's admitting that we need humane immigration reform. This means he's lining up, like this is him lining himself up for a 2028 run. I also think that it was pretty deliberate to have Kristi Noem come here and speak at Illinois, or speak to Illinoisans here. I think it's deliberate. I think that Donald Trump knows, likely, or the Trump administration knows that Governor J.B. Pritzker is eyeing down a 2028 run, and this probably was a move to intimidate him. So he says, I encourage the secretary to spend less time performing for Fox News and more time protecting the homeland. Secretary Noem must have not realized that she was visiting during Latino Unity Day. Yeah, of course she probably didn't realize it, because these are the days you just pull them out of your butt, leftists. I mean, there's a day for everything. We come together to celebrate vibrancy and diversity in our communities today. Kristi Noem was met with force stronger than her. The people of Illinoisans, and her clear message. Trump's lackeys, that we will not let you mess with our resistance. What is this thing? They've been calling for resistance lately, the leftists. That's like their new thing all of a sudden. Resist, resist. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Happy Thursday. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about preserving the community character, protecting property rights. This all has to do with the housing development, the Essex housing development that's back. It got shut down because there was this housing covenant, and they ran into hiccups, I guess, the developer, with the residents there, because of this pesky little thing, like the housing covenant that says that you can only develop this for single family homes. But they rezoned it. It's multifamily now, and now they want to put these 3-story apartment buildings there. And here's the thing, there's multiple projects that have been approved by the planning commission. Folks, I wouldn't get too freaked out. But I mean, if it's planned, then your property values are going to go down. Okay, so I would still go out, but I mean, I haven't seen ground break on quite a lot of these approved projects, which, I begin to question, is there a housing crisis? Because if there was actually a housing crisis, most likely these would have been developed. But because Illinois is so anti business, or because it's so unfriendly as far as taxes go, I bet the banks aren't even giving the developers the funds to actually build these things, because Illinois is so it is just an economic mess. Okay, and the property tax, there's no way that you're going to be able to charge a rent that you'll see a return on, where the banks will see a return on investment, because that's how unaffordable it is to live in the state of Illinois, and how out of control our property tax situation has gotten. McLean County specifically is ranked 27 out of the 3,000 plus counties in the nation for highest property taxes. Okay. So from a conservative standpoint, number one, multifamily housing often represents a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach to urban planning that threatens the integrity of established communities. We're all about community, faith, family, faith, family, and freedom, right? We're all about family, strong community, or strong families, strong communities, right? That's what conservatives are all about. Many neighborhoods have built single family homes for for multiple reasons. One, it fosters stability, safety, and a sense of shared values and community. High density, especially when you have impermanent populations like student housing, you're going to increase the traffic in that area, but you're also going to strain the infrastructure and you're going to disrupt the quiet nature of these residential areas. Number two, there's a local control thing here, okay? So allowing these developers from distant lands, distant urban developers who have no really, what's the word? No real skin in the game. Okay, they don't live there. None of your planning commissioners probably live there because again, we're at an at-large, or your planning commissioners or your town of normal councilmen, they probably all don't live there because we're an at-large government. And unfortunately, the town of Normal shut this down where we would be on a ward system where your representation would have to live close to you. The beauty of that is that your town councilman goes through the same issues you do, and you know exactly who to go to. But unfortunately, the town of Normal, in their undemocratic, tyrannical fashion, shut that down when you tried to break up the at-large government into a ward system similar to Bloomington's. So when neighborhoods overwhelmingly oppose this thing, the development, as is the case with the Essex project, okay, the opposition should carry serious weight. And I hope that the planning commissioners are listening. The planning committee is listening. Communities, not developers or bureaucrats, okay? Not the developers who donate to the three councilmen, a total of 6,000, I think it was between years 2021 and 2023, between three councilmen, okay? There's, the Young America managing broker and president who, is this Worthington LLC developer. They are affiliated with each other. You should be focused on the neighborhood and the residents who live there, and the community should decide how their neighborhoods grow, not the developers and not bureaucrats, and not you, especially considering you don't live there. Okay, if you're a town councilman, you really need to go and talk to these residents, and not to mention that this is going to be a strain on resources. So, for example, multifamily units can disproportionately burden schools, emergency services, roadways. In Bloomington, we know that they have the police chief just talked about this not that long ago. Traffic is a big issue. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. When we come back, we're going to have more on this, but also more news ahead. We'll be right back. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I realized I was like pretty out of time. I was like, I gotta go take a break. But to wrap this up, there is an element here of the burden on emergency services, the burden on schools, the burden on roadways. We know the Bloomington police chief talked about how traffic is like the number one call that they get. Okay, traffic incidents, car accidents. Probably because at a state level, you guys remember the state law that was passed and is now in effect. It's the three strikes you're outlaw kind of is how I've described it. It's where you can get 3 traffic citations without having to pay it or answer to it. So if previously to the previously before this law, it was 1 ticket, and if it went unpaid, you risked having your license suspended. Okay, now you get 3 tickets that go unpaid, and on your 3rd one, then you're at risk for a suspended license. So there's no real incentive to act safely on the road anymore, and you can thank Justin Slaughter for that one. He's a Democrat representative. So these costs often hurt the taxpayer. Obviously, there's going to be a burden on schools, emergency services, roadways, utilities, all of that. So there's going to that we're definitely going to eat more costs. We're going to occur more costs, and we aren't going to see any benefit of it. Okay, the entire town of Normal is probably going to be taxed more to cover the burden that this multifamily housing units have um, on the area there. So um, instead of this high density housing, we should really maintain the current population. Okay, they have an issue with maintaining the current population. The schools are already struggling. Okay, they're having a difficult time maintaining public school infrastructure in Unit 5 schools. I mean, the kids can't read at grade level, most of them. And not to mention, there's going to be unintended social consequences as well, increased crime possibly. I'll be right back. Hold on. Taxpayers, get out your pocketbooks, because most likely you're going to be eating all kinds of costs due to the disproportionate burden on schools, emergency services, roadways, utilities. Multifamily units can have a disproportionate burden on schools and these various services, and the taxpayers are going to be eating that cost. So we know that Unit 5 schools are already struggling. Again, all of the school districts in McLean County asked you for a sales tax just this last April on your ballot. They're always struggling with money. Maybe it's because they pay their district administrators thousands upon thousands of dollars. Sorry. But they're struggling with money. This is going to put a burden on them. They're already having a hard time maintaining the infrastructures at these schools. The hard infrastructure, but also the kids can't read at grade level or do math at grade level at all McLean County schools. I mean, this is just a statewide problem. And so not only is there going to be a strain on resources and public services that are already pretty strained, okay, but and you have, as a town councilman, as a planning committee, you have a responsibility to sustainability. I think it's so interesting that these individuals say sustainable, 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 but they don't actually vote that way. Okay. You want to talk about sustainability? Like, we already have overcrowded classrooms. The teachers, will say they're overworked. And you're the one who's giving them more of a burden. Okay, you're gonna hear cops, oh man, we've got a lot of car accidents, a lot of traffic incidents, and they aren't about the sustainability. And if they vote this thing in tonight at the planning commission meeting, they are going to if they vote this in, this is a slap in the face to sustainability. You have an obligation to the current population. And there's also going to be social consequences. There could be increased crime if they're going to be students, drinking, disorderly behavior. Many studies have shown that high density areas correlate with increased calls to law enforcement. Okay, reduced privacy, obviously, and our values as conservatives, we believe in strong families, and it's very hard to create a strong family in a secure environment when you have these high density areas and increased crime and disorder that comes with them. Just statistically, okay, there's been multiple studies done on high density areas, and almost 9 times, like all of the time, when you stack people up on top of each other, there are going to be increased calls to law enforcement. This isn't even debatable. It's not even up for debate. Okay. And we need to understand that this undermining of the zoning laws and these covenants, these housing covenants, and relaxing zoning too far in the favor of high density projects, it causes our families to crumble. It causes our environments to become insecure. And don't miss tonight's planning commission. Okay, I wanted to cover that. I gave you all of the reasons. There's unintended social consequences. Not to mention, you're going to have kids going to various schools, because I think they've already talked about that to try to relieve the burden on schools and the strain on those resources. They're going to have the kids in this development go to a different school than the kids that go to, like, say, in the Collie Ridge subdivision. They're going to go to a different school, and the kids aren't going to really know each other. And if they don't know each other, see each other every single day at school, You're not building a community, you're not building communications that's going to really have some crazy social consequences, strain on resources, not to mention you should have control, not the developers or the bureaucrats, these distant urban developers who override the preference of local residents. That has got to stop. You've got to make your voice heard, and you should always preserve the community character and your property rights. Okay, your property values are going to go down, not to mention your sense of shared values that you've had. I talked to a resident. He has lived in Normal 51 years. 51 years. You know how many relationships he's probably built in his subdivision or in his community, his little community there. There's these neighborhoods that surround this development, this proposed development. He's probably built a lot of relationships. And once you add more people, it's going to change up those relationships. Okay. And yeah. So I've got to shift gears. I do want to get to a few other things this morning, but it's a big deal. The Planning Commission meeting, it's tonight. Of course, the Normal residents are going to show up. They're going to push back against the developer who's trying to revive this controversial Essex apartment plan near Shelbourne Drive. So show up at 5 o'clock tonight if you live in the area, or even if you're just a normal citizen, because this affects you. As I said, if you're a normal taxpayer, you're going to have to probably pay for the burdens to our resources, the strains on our resources and public services that this is going to have. Okay, let's get to this. In Illinois, homeowner forced to sleep on an air mattress and share a resident with his residence. I want to be very clear. His residence with these squatters. We're going to get to that. So one of the most insane concepts that liberals have come up with in recent times is that there is such a thing as squatters' rights. It's unclear when private property rights like they decided to do away with that and that they no longer exist, private property rights. Same thing here, with the multifamily housing in Normal. To go back to that, like it's just an attack on private property rights. And they do the same thing. Leftists do the same thing here with these squatters' rights. Democrats do this and have crafted it in Illinois law. And, they do this. They give the squatters' rights at the expense of you. And trespassing, right? And hey, trespassing should be a thing. And they give these trespassers rights, and they don't give you any kind of private property rights. And this is the reality that many people face in these leftist areas. An Illinois homeowner, and I'm going to get to this, an Illinois homeowner was forced to sleep on an air mattress in his own living room in hopes that one day the squatters' infestation would eventually resolve itself, which it did not. He was forced to pay them $4,000 in this deranged cash for the keys type incentive like deal. Although they didn't sign a lease, they didn't do anything like that. They never owned the property. They were just there one day, and the homeowner was forced to move into his own house together with these squatters, okay, after the police told him that the squatters couldn't be removed under state law. So let's take a listen here. This is the reporting from ABC7. And you can actually hear from the guy. This is on the south side, Chicago. Take a listen.
But there was already people inside.
I couldn't believe it. It was like a nightmare.
Velasquez says a woman named Charmaine and her boyfriend Codero moved in, claiming they recently purchased the property. He says the couple showed police this mortgage document, but Cook County confirms they don't see this mortgage on record. Velasquez's realtor recorded this video as the couple explained to police they had a right to be there.
Y'all bogus right now. I listen, bro.
He says police told them under Illinois' current law, they couldn't remove anyone.
I said I'm not moving out, and I said at the one point they gotta leave. They gotta get tired of us being in the property. I called a couple of friends, stay overnight, and I knew they were not gonna like that.
So you're telling me that you and your friends came in and moved in with them?
Yes.
Velasquez says he, his wife, and their friends got a few air mattresses and spent the night with the alleged squatters.
We stayed in the living room. We were watching all the time the door. They stayed in one of the bedrooms.
The next morning, he says he realized they were not budging.
They're like, oh, well, we want $8,000.
Velasquez says they negotiated. He had the couple sign a cash for key agreement and he paid them $4,300 to leave.
We wouldn't want to give them money, but we heard, really bad stories about squatters taking over properties 6, 8, 10 months, even a year.
Mm. So this is Marco Vesquez, or Velezquez. I'm gonna mess up his name. And he was gearing up to sell his property on the city's South Side neighborhood when he received the troubling news from his realtor, okay, who was selling his house, regarding these unexpected occupants, these squatters. Alleged squatter Charmaine Powell, which I mean, alleged, okay. This is from the New York Post, and her boyfriend Cardaro Dorsey took refuge in the house, and they claimed to be the rightful owners of the property. When the realtor confronted them, Powell had been arrested actually prior to that confrontation. Weeks earlier, because she was accused of squatting on another South Side home. So, like, these are perpetual squatters, okay? So, Charmaine, she's done this before. She's no stranger to the squatting. And the worst part about these cases is that the police treat them as civil matters. When confronted by the realtor and police officers, the sly couple, they showed an official-looking mortgage document claiming that they had every right to remain in the house. Officials could not get a copy of that mortgage or the mortgage in their records. So and it tells you that this is probably a fake document, okay? If they can't get the records, if there's no record of it anywhere, that means it was likely a fake document. But they're limited, the police, obviously, on what they can do because of city laws and state laws. Under current Illinois law, you cannot remove suspected squatters unless the homeowner goes through a months-long eviction process. Okay, and he didn't want to do that. Good for him. He kind of stood his ground. He says, okay, I'm going to stay in my living room and I'm going to stay here with all my friends and I'm going to try to wait you out. But they were not budging. So eventually the intruders demanded $8,000 to leave the premises, despite, previously claiming to own the place, right? You would think if it was actually their place and they were the ones with the mortgage, okay, that they would be staying there. No, but they essentially put him into a corner and said, pay us $8,000 and then we'll leave. But wait a second, you claimed it was your place, though. Why would you want to leave for just $8,000? So this tells me it's not your place. Okay, they settled for $4,000. So you took $4,000 to leave a house that you allegedly owned, according to your falsified official-looking mortgage document. Give me a break. These people are the most scummiest people on earth. It drives me absolutely insane. However, given this is not the first alleged incident where he took refuge in a house without permission, it's unlikely going to be his last, okay? Charmaine, okay, and this Cardaro, okay, her boyfriend, they've done this multiple times. They're scammers. That's what they do. They scam their way in, and they're taking advantage of this dumb state law. And even if the government wanted to help those facing gentrification or the rising cost of living, these people who have no place to go because the rising cost of living, why would it be through the squatters' rights law? Okay, they want to address the housing crisis and squatters' rights, squatters have rights, blah, blah, blah. Why would it be through de facto eminent domain? Okay, where the government comes in and they say, oh, well, we're the ones who decide what happens to this property and who gets to live here. It's a de facto eminent domain because the government comes in, the police officers, and they say, well, we're not going to remove them. And we're the ones who, decide what's going on with the property. I don't know. If a squatter came into my house, I don't know. I might invoke my Second Amendment rights. Because you're trespassing, you're committing crime against me. The fact that criminals are emboldened to take over properties, and then subsequently this couple was rewarded $4,000 for it. It's a scandal. It's a complete scandal. I don't know where this became a thing, but this is what happens when liberals say things like housing is a human right. This is what they mean. They mean that, hey, it doesn't matter that you paid for this mortgage, doesn't matter that this is yours. Housing is a human right, and these individuals deserve housing even if it's yours. That's what they mean by housing is a human right. And by claiming that this is all intended to help the little guy, the squatters' rights, and, address the housing crisis. They're destroying any chance for law-abiding citizens to enjoy their property and to just exist as an American, okay, and have freedom and have property. And that tells you all you really need to know about the left and about Democrats, because they would prioritize the so-called little guy. These are scammers. They're criminals. And they're scamming people as they're squatting into these various houses. They were willing to leave for $4,000. Absolutely wild. Now, there is state legislation. I don't think it's really, it might come to fruition. Who knows? Unfortunately, this is the law for now in the state of Illinois. The same lawmakers, I find this interesting, the same state lawmakers who created squatters' rights, they're now they've now introduced state legislation aimed at making trespassing illegal again. Why would you make trespassing legal in the first place? All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Cat, they could develop the old Bloomington Mall. They could put that development there, or put it out by Rivian. Yeah, there is a place actually right across the street from my church. It's already zoned, I think, for multifamily housing. Why don't they put it there? It's right there across the street from like Hovey Avenue on that stuff. Like, it's already zoned that way. Why would you go into an area where there's a housing covenant, where it was zoned single family, rezone it, and when there's already areas zoned for multifamily? And I don't know, I would imagine that they'd have to rezone the Bloomington Mall area if they were to develop something out there, but because I'm sure it's zoned like commercial or something like that. But they were willing to rezone the single family zoning, so that should be no problem for them to rezone it to multifamily housing. Yeah. See, Ralph, you're asking for the government to make sense and to do the common sense thing, and they will never do that. I'm gonna take a quick break, but smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Ralph, he's texting me saying, Cat, couldn't they just develop like the old Bloomington Mall? Could they put the development there, the Essex Housing Project, or could they put it out by Rivian? So uh, exactly the point. Ralph, what you're asking is for the government. What you're asking is for the government to have common sense. So actually, I do know that it's right across the street from my church. Actually, there's a plot that's already zoned multifamily housing. It's right there, still in Normal, and I don't know why they wouldn't develop that instead, or take the development there because it's not surrounded by multiple like neighborhoods like Holly Ridge. So I don't know. Ralph, what you're asking for is for the government to have some common sense, and I don't know. They don't have it. So they, just abruptly rezoned this to multifamily housing when it was for single family housing, and there was a housing covenant. Why go through all of that when there's already an area that's zoned for multifamily housing? I don't get it. It's because these people lack common sense. All right, let's actually look into this. I was telling you a little bit about squatting. Like I said, there's potential legislation about making trespassing illegal again. Not really. I mean, there's a law in the books about squatters' rights, and what this state legislation says is, oh, well, it shouldn't be misconstrued, the law, to prohibit law enforcement officers from doing their job and enforcing trespassing laws. Okay, but why does the law exist? The squatters' rights law exists. Let's just get rid of that completely. No, they want it up for interpretation. So instead of taking away or repealing a law and getting rid of the law that enshrines squatters' rights in Illinois and gives squatters rights in Illinois, they would much rather introduce separate legislation that confuses everybody. And they're saying that, oh, it's going to make trespassing illegal, or, oh, law enforcement officers could remove squatters if we pass this legislation. Just get rid of the law that gave them the rights in the first place. Am I right? When we come back, I'm going to be talking about this generously proportioned woman, Black woman, who now stands 12 feet tall in Times Square, New York City. So it's a statue, and I mean, the erection of this statue raises more questions than answers. I really don't get. And what's really rich about this is leftists are talking about how it resembles Michelangelo's David, which is just false. I'll be back. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. In no way is in the community's best interest. Yeah, and what I want to talk about, and I've talked about this before, is that they're the ones who talk about sustainability all of the time. The left, the Democrats, they'll say sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. This is not sustainable. This housing project, because it's going to put a strain on resources. And then it's also really going to change our or have social consequences. This is not sustainable for the communities in that area. But number one. Number two, they always talk about inequality, okay? And they talk about inequality as far as wealth goes, okay? So, like, how do they phrase it, the left? Disproportionate wealth, inequality in incomes, all of that, okay? And they want to address that. What they're doing here in Normal is very interesting, because it's almost like they are purposefully trying to create a gap, okay? An inequality, an income inequality gap. Okay, so they're either building mini mansions, okay, with the granite countertops and these gorgeous looking homes for $500,000, over $500,000 in some cases, because they said it was like less than 10 homes or something like that on the market for less than $400,000 or something crazy like that. Like, it's kind of insane. So all the homes in Normal are like nearly $500,000. Okay, so you can't even find a home for $200,000 or $100,000 or something like that, because these developers are going into these communities and they're either developing multifamily housing units, so apartments, or they're building mini mansions. Okay, so think about the look of a neighborhood if you have mini mansions and apartment buildings. I'll wait. This is tyranny, okay? And this is income inequality. This is creating a lower class and a higher class. There is no middle class. There is no average American. There is no average normal resident. And they are going to tax you into oblivion to subsidize now these lower class folks. And you are going to have these lower class folks in these apartment buildings where they have nothing, they own nothing, and they're constantly spending money. Now, eventually they're going to and they're already doing this in Bloomington. The city of Bloomington, they passed like tax breaks or something, or tax incentives for developers to build these multifamily housings. And it's already going to cost you money to build these things, okay, as a taxpayer, because of the strain on resources. But now they're doing it where they're going to give money to developers to build these multifamily housing units, okay, tax money, tax credits, okay, in the form of a tax credit and tax incentives. So they're going to tax you into they're trying to on purpose, I think, they're trying to on purpose eliminate the middle class. They're going to tax you into oblivion to the point where you got to go. Okay. Now they don't like these neighborhoods. They don't like Holly Ridge. They don't like these middle class neighborhoods. Okay. They want an upper class, somebody in a $500,000 home, and they want a lower class, somebody who pays multiple thousands of dollars in the form of rent and owns nothing and is happy. And they want to create upper and lower, and these plebs here have got to go to the lords and ladies who live in the middle class or in the upper class mansions, mini mansions, okay? And they've got to go to them for pennies on their subsidized multifamily housing. I'm no class. Yeah. I live out on a farm and I'm no class. And I'm living off the land. Yeah, it's always strive to be in no class, right? And just live off the land and not be a part of the system at all. But I think it's very interesting how these are the same people who scream about sustainability and then they scream about income inequality, but they're not allowing for single family homes to be built without the basement finish, without the granite countertop starter homes, okay, which can be done, but it's almost like there's a plan or a ploy to build the mini mansions and build these apartments, and there's no in between. And I think it's because the left truly hates the middle class. They want the subsidized poor and the lords and ladies, okay? They want to get back to those times. They are regressive, and I say it all of the time. Progressives are not actually progressive. They're regressive. They want to take us back to a time where we sacrificed children, okay, to the days of pagans in the form of abortion. Genital mutilation was a form of punishment, okay? But they're just kind of putting a new spin on it, and they're calling it progressive, but really these things have taken place in centuries ago and they were barbaric, okay? So they're actually regressive. They want to take us back to a time where there were lords and ladies and peasants. And yeah, I mean, it's so clear. Just imagine a neighborhood or imagine a community, a city where there's just mini mansions and apartment buildings. It would be a pretty sad community to live in. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Before we took the break, I was telling you about this generously proportioned black woman. She now stands 12 feet tall in New York City's Times Square. And I don't know. This is like, let's just listen to this clip. Here we go.
Times Square. Brighter Than the Stars is about trying to communicate those dreams and communicate those inner worlds that we have, and sometimes we misinterpret with one another, to try and create an understanding and basically encourage empathy. I have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lead.
It's just so bizarre. I hate that song, by the way. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on yourself. It's called accountability. Okay, don't lean on the government. We were just talking about, imagine a place where there's just a bunch of $500,000 homes and a ton of these high density apartment units. Oh, that's normal. It's almost like they're purposefully trying to get rid of the middle class and they're trying to take us back to a time where, and they're not progressive, you see, and they're not actually about income equality and addressing the income gaps. They want leftist Democrats, they want people who are low plebs. They are the subsidized poor. They want them in these high density areas, and they eventually want to subsidize their housing. And they want to subsidize the poor so that way they are subservient to them. Okay, they're subservient to the elite. Okay, so now you've gotten rid of the entire middle class. You're not building single family homes without the granite countertops and the finished beautiful basement with 6 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms or whatever. You're building mini mansions and you're building multifamily housing. What you're doing, and I see it. I see you. I know so you're creating a upper class and a lower class. There is no middle class, and that's what they're trying to do. So it's very interesting. You have these people, and I have a point here. They're erecting the statue. And these people are incredibly racist. This black woman, it's a fictitious character. It's not a real black woman, although she has a very uncanny resemblance to Letitia James. I don't think anybody would disagree with me there. She looks just like Letitia James, this statue. I think it's interesting. You've got, these people. We all need someone to lean on, right? The black community is going to have to lean on, or not even black community, but maybe like a lower class is going to have to lean on the upper class and wait for their subsidies to survive. Okay, it's called peasants versus lords and ladies. And I think it's interesting what this guy says here. But let me get to this. We have an epidemic of woke artists erecting these statues of black women doing literally nothing. Okay, and this is a way to say, oh, like we love you, we love the peasants, and we're going to build statues of you. And like the Democrats are really, really, really racist. They're the ones who say that black people are low income, and what was it? Poor kids are just as bright as white kids, is what Joe Biden said. They truly believe that. They believe that all black people are poor and that they need them and that they need to lean on them. The rich elite, the public sector elite. It's really quite disgusting. But there's woke artists in Florence, Italy. They had also, I think this is in Italy. They've built another one. I think it might be, it's someplace in Europe, I think. Yeah, I got to look into it. But there's another one also, and they're comparing this to David, the Michelangelo's David. This is an infamous sculpture. If you don't know what it is, just Google it really quick. Michelangelo's David. You'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen that sculpture. And there is now a black. Okay, so this is in Florence, Italy. I double checked. This is in Florence, Italy. This is a bronze statue of a black woman on her cell phone. This is also a bronze statue. It's made of bronze, but it's like darker color, so it's not gold. The one in Florence, Italy is goldish looking. But they displayed the one in Florence, Italy. They displayed it where Michelangelo's David used to be on display. And there's a black woman on her cell phone there. And this one, she's in New York City. She's just kind of got her hands on her hips and she's like a plus size black woman. Visitors and residents in Times Square have a new piece of artwork, according to the Black Enterprise, to view these days. A 12-foot sculpture of a woman titled Grounded in the Stars stands at Broadway and 46th Street in New York. The bronze sculpture is the brainchild of a London-based figure artist, Thomas Price. Okay, by creating a fictional character, Price aimed to encapsulate the observations, images, and open calls of New York, Los Angeles, and London. The new installation presented by Times Square Art is a subtle nod to Michelangelo's David, and captures familiar everyday qualities through the woman's stance and clothing. So I don't know. It's just very bizarre, and I'm having trouble how the two to see how the two are related. Like this average Black woman is standing there, being very average, and this 12-foot statue, and they're comparing it to Michelangelo's David sculpture. Number one, okay, I don't think that the artist, actually the modern artist, did not sculpt a single piece of marble, which is really, really hard to do. These are bronze sculptures. It involves like a casting process. And you can kind of get away with fine detail without fine detail with bronze statues. I mean, with marble sculpting, you have to have like a very steady hand. There is a chiseling and carving process, and it's very time consuming, and you have to have a very, very so. I mean, to compare this to Michelangelo's David is absolutely ridiculous. And I see what they're trying to say here. They're trying to say that this woman's oppressed and that she's the little guy and that Black women everywhere are oppressed. And David, Michelangelo's David, it's one of the most iconic sculptures of the Renaissance, and it's celebrated for the representation of human perfection, civic virtue, and the spirit of Florence. Okay, so it was created between 1501 and 1504, and the statue stands 17 feet tall, and it was carved with marble. It was a block of marble, and it's like this got emotional depth to it because this is David from the Bible, a biblical character, by the way, and he faced intensity because he was facing Goliath. Obviously, we know the biblical story of David, and the statue originally stood in the public square in Florence as a symbol of the city's strength and independence, particularly from larger powers. And I think that this is interesting because they're trying to say that this woman, or like Black women, face a larger power, but these are Democrats. Okay, the Democrats are your larger power, are the wealthy elite who are trying to keep you down and subsidizing you, or subsidizing the Black community, or even just lower. I don't even think it really has anything to do with race. I think that they are playing this race game, the left, but really it has everything to do with, we want a lower class and we want to be the upper class, and we want you to be subservient to us. Okay. And for example, Joe Biden, he says, if you didn't vote for me, you ain't Black, right? That's literally what Joe Biden said. I'm not even taking that out of context. So David showcases, not only like Michelangelo had a ton of brilliance here, and he, took time, and it was time consuming in 1500s. Like, come on, this was definitely art. This is not art, in my opinion. And I'm not even like an art connoisseur or anything like that, but there was a serious issue in Florence with oppression, and and it was very clear who the oppressors were. Same as the time of David, Goliath and the Philistines, right? It was very clear that they wanted to wipe out the Jews. And there was a very, very clear oppression, and they were against their oppressors. It's very interesting here. The people who erect these types of statues, they are the oppressors, and they're erecting the statues of who they deem as lower. Just as Joe Biden said, poor kids are just as bright as white kids. They see the Black community as lower than them. And some net citizens, they say that internet citizens, they say that the statue looks a lot like Letitia James. It does. And I can't disagree with that. Nonetheless, the fact that the city allowed this sculpture to go up and call it art clearly shows that they don't care, that they're going to make your eyes bleed. This is not beautiful, and there is no it's kind of embarrassing. Okay, you have the elitists erecting the statue. The people who presented the statue, it was this Times Square artists or whatever. These are all a bunch of elitists, and they erected the statue, and they're the oppressors. So the difference here with David's Michelangelo is that David was actually oppressed by the Philistines, and it was symbolic. During that time in Florence, there were powers that be. There were elitists who were trying to oppress they were struggling with the larger powers there at that time. And I mean, this is just wild to me that they're making this connection. So I have so many questions about this statue. Number one, why is she fat? Okay, it makes no sense. Two, how exactly is this going to confront preconceived notions of identity and representation? That's what they said as to the reason why they wanted to erect this sculpture, is that it's to confront the preconceived notions of identity and representation. Okay. Thirdly, how is this this overweight Black woman in modern day clothes a subtle nod to Michelangelo's David? I really don't know what they're trying to get at here, because I, I don't see the resemblance at all. The outlet reported this Black, what is it, Enterprises, they reported that the intent of this is to capture, quote, familiar everyday qualities through the woman's stance in her clothing. However, it's unclear what that means and why such a basic outfit would do that. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I demand answers. And, you know, I think that this also raises the ambiguous debate. Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? That may remain unclear, but one thing is for certain: this Black statue, this Black woman, is going to go down in history. It's probably one of the worst statues ever to be erected in New York City, or ever in probably world history. I mean, this, and the comparison here is what drives me nuts. David, Michelangelo's David is so much better, and I don't see a comparison at all. All right, I gotta take a quick break, but we're gonna come back. I'm gonna talk about Kristi Noem. Governor J.B. Pritzker is on social media screaming at the sky about Kristi Noem being right outside his governor's mansion. People are saying that Kristi Noem was using Emma Schaefer as a political pawn. It is not it is not true that Emma Schaefer, saying this, Emma Schaefer would be alive today had Gabriel Calixto been deported when he was supposed to be deported. He had a deportation order drafted up, and under the Biden administration, he managed to skirt federal immigration enforcement. So I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, smash that like button, share this out. Still baffles me that Dems are allowed to have direct involvement in making COVID than saying it's an election. Anyone? David and erect. Yeah, well, the statue, I get what they're trying to say here, kind of, because they're trying to say that, because David was viewed as the oppressed, okay, the Philistines, they would go in, and this is also just to show you the mockery of these secular people who erected the statue and who put up the statue. They are memeing, okay, like always, the biblical characters. They're trying to troll Christianity again. And they're trying to say that Black women in this country are similar to that of the Jewish plight in David's time, where he was oppressed. And that is not at all the case, because in David's time, when the statue was Michelangelo's David was built or carved, Michelangelo, he was trying to make a political statement, and then, you know, at that time, there was true oppression, I think that there is true oppression with the Black community, but the people who erected this, they're the oppressors, okay? And they're siding with their oppressor. And back then, in Florence, Italy, when this was built, Michelangelo's David, they weren't siding with their oppressors. This was an actual protest against the oppressor. This is not a protest against the oppressor. This is the oppressor putting this up and trying to say that they're oppressed by Republicans or the white man or whatever. And that's not actual oppression. They're trying to sow a racial divide because when you divide a country, you can conquer the country. And they're trying to create this racial divide between white people and black people. So that way it's easier to take over both of them. If we're constantly fighting at each other's throats, it's going to be easier to take over. And it's not about black versus white. It's about them versus us. Okay, the elite versus really the middle class. Middle class black Americans, middle class white Americans. That's what the true oppression is all about. And they've gotten a population, which is the subsidized poor. They've already got them hooked. Okay, these are your most naive voters. These are the people who vote blue no matter who. Okay, and they've already got them hooked for forever because they are subservient to the elitist. And what they're trying to do with this statue is that they're trying to say that you're oppressed and the Democrats are going to help you and you should vote for them, right? And I look no further. I got to look at who these artists are, the Times Square artists. They're all probably backed by. And it's so interesting here. You've got this guy, he's a Times Square Arts. So you got this guy and he's revealing the statue, Times Square Arts. If I were to just look into this, yeah, they're all going to be liberals. Now, I want to look at the director, Jean Cooney, because I'm telling you right now, if I look this up, she's going to be connected to some sort of leftist causes or organizations, nonprofits, who knows. I'm looking. I'd have to look into her name's Jeannie Cooney, but these people, they are erecting this statue and they're the actual oppressors, so they have no idea what Michelangelo's David was actually all about. And what they're trying to do is troll Christianity. They're also trying to get people to believe that they're oppressed by their fellow white man. Okay. And it's a tactic of the actual oppressors because a country divided is easier to control. All right. We've got so much else to get to this morning. Let's get to Kristi Noem, shall we? Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Kristi Noem. Now, Kristi Noem, she was here in Springfield, Illinois, and she was right outside the governor's mansion. And Governor J.B. Pritzker has completely lost his marbles because she was here. And really what I think is going on, they probably know that Governor J.B. Pritzker is eyeing a 2028 presidential run. And they're losing their marble, or Governor J.B. Pritzker is losing his marbles because most likely the Trump administration had Kristi Noem come here because they know that Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be running in 2028. So this was, I don't want to say it was a stunt, but I think that it really is deliberate as to why Kristi Noem came here. And she's highlighting the failures of the governor, specifically because we know that he's eyeing a 2028 run. And we have to keep him out of the White House, okay? So I think that that's what's going on here, why Kristi Noem was here. It's just speculation because they want to highlight the the failures of the governor, so that way he doesn't become president of the nation. Okay, so here's what Governor J.B. Pritzker said about Kristi Noem. He said, the Trump-Noem publicity stunts do not make our community safer or immigration system smarter. Illinois does not need abuse of power or ignore the Constitution to keep our people safe. Like the millions of Americans asking for sensible, humane immigration reform, I encourage the secretary to spend less time performing for Fox News and more time protecting the homeland. So right here, he's already like laying the groundwork for his 2028 run. Sensible, humane immigration reform, right? Who wouldn't want sensible, humane immigration reform? Well, that's exactly what's going on here. Deportation is not inhumane. And he's going to try to launch himself into a 2028 run because it's an 80-20 issue, by the way. People want immigration reform. People want illegal immigrants to be deported. So he knows that, and he is being very, very, very deliberate with his word choice here. He's wanting sensible, humane immigration reform. I'm going to do immigration reform, when I'm president in 2028, when I run for president. That's my promise, humane immigration reform. Donald Trump just isn't doing it humanely, or whoever runs in 2028, it may be J.D. Vance or somebody like that. Now, I do want to share this. Secretary Noem, she completely destroys this congressman representative. And I've told you before that the left is going to come up with this lie, and they have been, that children, American children, are going to be deported, or that they're being kidnapped or disappeared, as Governor J.B. Pritzker put it in his release. He said, disappearing law-abiding neighbors, including children, who he says the Trump administration is using or violating the U.S. Constitution, denying people due process, and disappearing law-abiding neighbors, and including U.S. children, United States citizens. Not true at all. So this is an exchange between Representative Escobar is his name, and he was clearly wanting Representative Veronica Escobar, sorry. And she's pushing these dubious claims that Donald Trump is deporting American minors, American citizen minors, despite the mothers requesting that they stay together. And the facts are not going, they're not going to come out because the left isn't about the facts. Let's take a listen to this. Here we go.
Focus on U.S. citizens who were deported. In fact, 3 children so far, likely more children. One of those children with cancer who was deported without the medication necessary to address that child's cancer. Again, a U.S. citizen. The lawyers have said that they were not given, the family was not given an opportunity to make plans for the kids. And so they were deported, essentially, again, U.S. citizens. I have a question about the forms that ICE is supposed to utilize when engaging with parents who have children, the parents who are being deported, and the U.S. citizen children. One of those forms is ICE form 71-078, or the caregiver designation at arrest form. Were any of the individuals who were deported, who had U.S. citizen children deported with them, were they given an opportunity to sign that form?
When these, the specific cases that you're referencing with these children, it was the parents' choice to take their children with them,
Did ICE
which it is the
follow
policy of
through
the
on the
Trump
policy?
administration to keep families together. That is what
Ma'am,
we have continued
reclaiming
to
my
do, is
time.
that
I
these
told you at the
children,
top of this,
their
ma'am,
parents took
ma'am, reclaiming my time. I said that the questions are really simple, yes or no. Was that form used in any of those cases?
I will get back
yes
to you
or
on
no?
that
Okay,
specific form. I
perfect.
don't know the
Thank
number,
you.
but I do
That's-
know these mothers
Okay,
went on the
thank you.
record
The
filling out
second form,
paperwork
ma'am,
and in
reclaiming my
interviews
time.
reiterating
Ma'am,
they wanted
please,
to keep their
ma'am,
children with them.
reclaiming my time.
Mm.
I'd like you to avoid the filibuster so I can get to all my questions,
Answering
please.
your questions.
So
with
the
facts.
second,
Oh, this lady, I would not like to be her in person. She gives me, I just am so itchy after watching that. She clearly wanted this to be a clickbait moment. That's why she kept shutting Kristi Noem down to reclaim her time. But Noem was not there to mess around. She said, look, the mothers went on record, documentation shows that they had requested the child be deported with them. So why does the left believe that just because you're a mother or father, that somehow gives you a break on federal immigration law? You probably shouldn't have broken federal immigration laws, considering, or just to have babies here, right? Anchor babies. And that's just so disgusting. And again, it's like this attack on the family unit, trying to really, it's like saying, we don't care that much about human life. We're willing to, use our child to get around federal immigration laws. And the left is obviously supportive of that. And that's, it aligns with their principle that they don't like human life. Okay. They don't care that children are being born as a way to anchor themselves and as a way to break federal immigration law or skirt federal immigration laws. So this is what really happened. Secretary Marco Rubio, here's what he has to say here. This is what really happened, and the fake news media is going to try to tell you that Trump's deporting American U.S. Children.
On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Just to be clear, because I do want to get to the overhaul at the State Department. Is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families? And I hear what you're saying, without due process. Just to be very clear there.
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then you have 2 choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go. Children go with their parents. Parents decide where their children go. Right. The U.S. deported their mothers who were illegally in America.
So that's actually what happened. Fun fact. Can you believe that the left, they have the nerve to claim that they know better than the wishes of the mother? And that shouldn't shock you, because these are the same people against school choice, parental rights, right? And had ICE forced the children to stay here in the country despite the request of their mothers, the headlines would read, Trump administration separating children from their families. Like, there is really no factual reporting that these people do. Their sole intent is to mislead people, and that's why Kristen Welker, there with MSNBC with Marco Rubio, repeated these stupid claims about due process. There was plenty of due process for Kilmar, Abrego Garcia, and Gabriel Calixto. They had deportation orders. Kilmar actually had 2 of them, deportation orders, but they hope to gaslight the most naive voters into believing that random American children are being sent to foreign countries. They want the naive voters to do that, so that way the naive voters become servants to the elitists, and keep them in power, because they're the good guys. We're the compassionate ones. So the left, they have proven many, many times that they despise parental rights. This is just another example of that. The same is true with illegal immigrants. So I guess illegal immigrants don't have parental rights. Is that what you're saying? And this is just such a twisted story. And twisting this is so immoral. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'm going to be right back. Subscribe to the channel today.
13 anos em Minas Gerais. Tiago Lucas, de 30.
Andre Tiago Lucas is the reported father of Nunez's children. ICE says he was sentenced to 9 years of prison for the rape of a 13-year-old girl in his home country of Brazil.
Nothing surprises me anymore. Do I find it wrong? 100% wrong.
We shared our findings with Worcester County Sheriff Lou Evangelitis, an outspoken supporter of immigration reform in Massachusetts.
But the idea that someone has been documented that a Brazilian national fled the country because they were convicted for rape of a 13-year-old and could come to Massachusetts and not only disappear into the fabric of Massachusetts, but actually be living in a home that was a daycare center for young people. That's terrifying.
Records show EEC inspected the home daycare 5 times, but according to the agency, they saw no evidence of Lucas living there. She was hiding a secret.
Oops. Sorry about that. I must have hit my mute button. Sorry about that. So the story here was about this guy, and I'll just, according to the New York Post, child rapist Andre Lucas, he was reportedly the father of home daycare owner. So she had the home daycare, and he's the father of 2 children there, and he was living in this daycare, living in a home that was a daycare for young people, which is so creepy because he was a child rapist, right? The fugitive was arrested by federal immigration agents. And here's the clip. I'll just share with you the clip one more time. I think that this is important to listen to. One more time. Here we go.
13 anos em Minas Gerais. Tiago Lucas, de 30.
Andre Tiago Lucas is the reported father of Nunez's children. ICE says he was sentenced to 9 years of prison for the rape of a 13-year-old girl in his home country of Brazil.
Nothing surprises me anymore. Do I find it wrong? 100% wrong.
We shared our findings with Worcester County Sheriff Lou Evangelitis, an outspoken supporter of immigration reform in Massachusetts.
But the idea that someone has been documented that a Brazilian national fled the country because they were convicted for rape of a 13-year-old and could come to Massachusetts and not only disappear into the fabric of Massachusetts, but actually be living in a home that was a daycare center for young people. That's terrifying.
Records show EEC inspected the home daycare 5 times, but according to the agency, they saw no evidence of Lucas living there. She was hiding a secret.
13 anos em Minas Gerais. Tiago Lucas, de 30.
Andre Tiago Lucas is the reported father of Nunez's children. ICE says he was sentenced to 9 years of prison for the rape of a 13-year-old girl in his home.
Okay, so there's that story. And it's kind of unclear. I guess he had documentation. He came here in 2016. This is just evil. I mean, not all immigrants are evil. I want to point this out, but there is a vetting process. It's not impossible to determine who is and is not deranged. If this guy came from Brazil in 2016 and he had this type of record, it should be very easy in the vetting process to weed him out. Just because somebody is from a country that is less off than the United States doesn't mean that they automatically get citizenship. I was looking into some statistics. Our immigration population should have more in common with the people who live here. Okay, so it used to be where a lot of the immigrants coming here, they would go and take the step of learning the language. That's not so much the case anymore. And what you're starting to see are these pockets. So you've got like Chinatown, you've got these Hispanic communities where they all speak their language from the country where they came from. Okay, so now what you're starting to see is this multiculturalism effect in the United States, and there is no sense of unity. There is no sense of togetherness because we all don't have something in common with each other, which leads to more crime. Okay, it used to be where our immigrants, they'd come over, they'd go through a vetting process. In fact, most of them went to the length before they even went through the vetting process. They'd speak the language. They'd learn the language before they even attempted the vetting process to come into the country legally. They wind up learning the language. You see this a lot of times still with our student visas and our work visas. Those people try to learn the language. But we're starting to see less of that now from our immigrants coming over. And because we have these pockets now of immigrant communities, and there's no reason to learn the language. There's no reason to assimilate because you're essentially just taking your country and creating a little country or these several nationalities within one nation. And I mean, this is going to cause crime. We're already seeing this take effect where there's crime rate rise. All right, we're back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. We covered quite a few things this morning. The Normal residents, they're planning to push back on the developers. They try to revive this controversial Essex apartments plan. There's a planning commission meeting tonight, committee hearing at 5 o'clock in the town of Normal. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about this Brazilian migrant. I want to be clear, not all migrants are evil. I want to be very clear about that. Now, the illegal entry is something that needs to be addressed. You can't just come here and break our federal immigration laws and think that you could become a citizen. And just because you come from a country that's less off than the United States doesn't automatically mean you're worthy of asylum or that you're not a threat to the American people. So there should be a vetting process. It's not impossible to figure out who and who isn't deranged. This guy clearly deranged. He's a Brazilian migrant, Andreas Lucas. And I guess he was documented in some kind of way. He is the father of these two kids, the daycare owner's two kids, and he was living in this daycare with children, young people, although he was convicted of child rape in Brazil. Okay, so the worst part is Massachusetts, the governor there refuses to admit that there is a difference between people who are legal and illegal. And likely, like most leftist governors, they believe that just because you come from a Warsaw country, that automatically gives you a reason to be here. Take a listen.
Homeless and migrants living in hotels and motels. So just how much money is the state paying for lodging? Records obtained by the I-Team show the state has 17 contracts for housing, totaling more than $116 million. Those contracts are only for fiscal year 2024 and end in June.
This is something that we have been asking the administration for information on for better part of a year, and have been stonewalled on the information. So I think for you to get it, I think it's really important.
In some cases,
now that was a Republican Massachusetts lawmaker.
Hotels are collecting money from the state for 3 meals a day, $16 for breakfast, $17 for lunch, and $31 for dinner. That means $64 a day per person. The state's right to shelter law requires it provide families with refrigeration and basic cooking facilities. But some of the accommodations do not have those appliances, leaving the state to contract out for food and delivery. Citing the emergency nature of the crisis, the state gave Spinelli Ravioli Manufacturing Company in East Boston a $10 million 6-month no-bid contract to provide meals and delivery services. Spinelli's tells the I-Team, as an approved state vendor, we have the ability to deliver emergency meals and mobilize quickly.
Okay, so the point is, governor refuses to admit that these people are illegal, and in fact gives meals $64 per day, housing, and not only that, but meals from Spinelli's, which is an Italian restaurant, I'd imagine. When will these people get it? When will they realize that hey, no human is illegal is a complete slap in the face to the public safety across the state of Massachusetts, across the state of Illinois. No human is illegal. What do you mean? This child rapist from Brazil, he's illegal. He's convicted of a crime, and then he came here, and then he's like skirted our federal immigration laws and managed to stay in a daycare filled with children. What do you mean no human is illegal? All right. Anyway, we can expect more of the same from these people, from Governor J.B. Pritzker, from the governor of Massachusetts. They're never just going to get it. They just won't. All right. I gotta go for the day. I can't believe that we're already here to the end of the show. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I hope you have a great morning. The rest of your morning, Bloomington Normal. It's a new day. The sun's up. The coffee's on. Get to work safely. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Love you.